Welcome back to Touchline Talk by Soccer Perspective. I'm your host, Brandon Faust, and today we're diving into some massive MLS news, a calendar change that shifts the entire rhythm of the league that's upcoming, updates to the Apple TV streaming deal, and what the 2025 MLS Playoff Picture looks like. Let's get into it. So first, the big news, the new MLS Calendar. This is big. MLS is officially changing its season calendar and not just tweaking it, but flipping it to align with the global game. Here's the breakdown. The full change is going to hit in the 2027-28 season. Before that, we get a short transition season in early 2027 that runs from February through May, about 14 matches. After that, the new rhythm kicks in with a mid-July start, a winter break of almost 2 months, which is interesting. And then the season finishes in the spring, wrapping up in May. But why do this? Well, three big reasons. Global alignment, transfers, international breaks, and competitions finally line up. Over the years, MLS has always tried to find this pocket that it's not directly always in competition with the other primary soccer leagues in the world. In principle, maybe that sounds like a good idea to get some soccer eyes on it, but it has functionally been tough. It's usually like a March start, and then it runs into the end of November. And even a lot of times now, MLS Cup is at the beginning of December. There's times where transfer windows just don't really make sense, don't line up quite adequately. International breaks, where it's in the middle of the season, there's disruption, so they've got to make discretionary decisions on if MLS players are being released for this or if the league is continuing on while these players are being released and different things like that. So global alignment is, being a big thing and a big rally cry for a long time. The second is less competition with U.S. fall sports. Right now MLS is in, the playoffs, but it's being outshined by, two of the most watchable sports in America, college football and NFL football. And those are in the peaks of their, demand right now. And so it changes that a bit. And then more competitive clubs, especially in CONCACAF and international play, when those things are happening, that you're not losing a bunch of, key players during the MLS season to those things. And even just recently, right? Like there's an international break in the midst of the playoffs, right? So you got all this momentum, and now there's been a break between the conference semifinals and the conference finals, right, of the MLS Cup. So positive is really cleaner transfer windows. That winter recovery period is interesting, to get players healthy, and also maybe to avoid some of the cold weather. Better visibility for MLS Cup and the playoffs, and stronger global credibility. The negatives is cold weather. Clubs could suffer in those February-March games in the heart of the season. And, and even right now, I know that they play games in October, November in the playoffs, but some of these other places, that's going to be the heart of the season. It's also going to be cold. Fans lose some of the summer heavy tradition. In the past, I've been to plenty of MLS games during the summertime. There's not a lot of other crazy, sports that I'm engaged with during that time. So you could lose some fans during that summer. They're used to being exposed to it in the summer. Stadium logistics could change. Some of the shared stadiums or different things like that. Even places like Atlanta that have they do a good job filling up that stadium, but just more potential stadium conflicts. And the transition year may feel a little bit awkward, right? Like that kind of like shortened half season, then a little bit of a break, and then a full season again. But what it means for coaches and players, the timing of development, scouting, and player movement will shift as well. Young players aiming for MLS will step into a league that looks more like Europe in terms of its rhythm and its readiness as well. Coupling that is the big Apple TV update as well. The next big change is how you can access watching the MLS. Apple and MLS are restructuring how we can watch games. Starting in 2026, every MLS match, regular season, playoffs, Leagues Cup, All-Star, all the things will be included in a standard Apple TV subscription. no more separate season pass add-on. Apple TV got that big deal when Lionel Messi was coming to Inter Miami, and they were able, I think, to capitalize financially on getting people. You had to have an Apple TV subscription, and then also bolt on that season pass add-on. They would occasionally, like once a week, show like a free game or whatever. But this is big news. Because there have been a lot of controversy around the accessibility, besides a handful of games that Fox Sports picks up. The casual fan isn't just stumbling into MLS because it's behind not just one but two paywalls right now. So hopefully this means simpler access, more eyes on Major League Soccer, bigger global reach. I hope the reach, not just globally, but the reach here in the United States, that fans in the U.S. find a club near them that they can support and enjoy, and better exposure for players and clubs. Hopefully stronger digital storytelling, which is key for growing the league. And so there are challenges, like they are primarily, depending on one platform. And a lot of people, have Apple TV, but they're not willing to pay for an additional, league pass type subscription. So hopefully more people will bump into it that way. But it seems like an overall huge win to take, now there's only one paywall as opposed to two, and more matches that can be accessible as well. So moving into that, we're right in the thick of the MLS playoffs and the quest for MLS Cup. And the postseason, one of the things that has been tough sometimes to keep up with, and I do know that playoff formats in sports in America, sometimes shift or expand, but the play formats seem to oscillate every couple of years with the MLS. So if you haven't been paying attention, they had the wild card matches October 22nd, towards the end of October, kind of these one-off matches, kind of play-in games, if you will. And then they moved into round one was a best of three series between October 24th and November 9th. So it's a best of three, series, where, the first team that wins two games in the series moves on to the conference semis. Into the conference semis, it is a single leg fixture upcoming November 22nd through the 24th. We've got San Diego FC versus Minnesota United, the Vancouver Whitecaps versus LAFC. And then on the Eastern Conference, you got FC Cincinnati playing against Lionel Messi and Inter Miami, and Philadelphia Union versus NYCFC. The winners of that will move into the conference finals November 29th through 30th, single leg fixture again, and then moving into the MLS Cup final on December 6th of 2025. So the format has been, 9 teams per conference qualify. Seeds 8 and 9, play each other in that one game wild card fixture. And then that round one is a best of 3 series. And then everything after that is single elimination. The higher seed hosts every round, including MLS Cup. So a team will have, a home field advantage for MLS Cup. And it's interesting because in a lot of other leagues around the world, it's, you win the league, right? If you win the league, you win. And if you win the table, where, that's called the supporter shield here in the MLS. It doesn't carry a lot of weight. Very much in tune with the rest of American sports. There's a playoff format, which has its positive and negatives. The positives are you can get kind of that, underdog story. That seed who barely squeaked into the playoffs makes a compelling run. But then at the same time, there are teams that aren't rewarded for their consistency throughout the season, or if it comes down to the end of the season and your players aren't healthy, you can be punished for that as opposed to being consistent throughout the season. Squad rotation come playoff time, it becomes critical. Momentum teams can make those deep runs. But seeding is important, so there's still that weight from the regular season, is having home field advantage in the playoff game is massive. And having that home field, particularly for these teams in like more of a cold weather environment, in December could be significant. It changes how you play, how you set up versus, if a team like Miami gets home field advantage or a team in LA gets, home field advantage like an LAFC, it plays into that kind of warmer weather stuff as well. So between the calendar shift, between the Apple TV, reconfiguring their deal a little bit with MLS and the evolving playoff structure, MLS is stepping and has stepped into another new era. And it's one that pushes the league closer to the global game. That's going to be exciting. We still got a little bit of time before that calendar shift occurs. But if you're a fan of soccer, I would encourage you tune into MLS. The standard of the league has gotten a lot better. It's not the Premier League, right? It's not Serie A. It's not La Liga. It's not the Bundesliga. But there's some great players coming over here, and not just good players. Historically, when we saw like David Beckham, Steven Gerrard, Robbie Keane, Frank Lampard, some of those players that are coming over here, Nani, towards the back end of their careers. Obviously we've had Messi here, which is, massive for getting eyes on the game here in the States. But there is a caliber and quality of player that is coming into the MLS game. And it is fascinating. It is fascinating. Some cities are doing a better job creating a culture and an environment where it's more accessible, it's relatable to their town. And some teams are doing that very well. Some are struggling with that. We do have some teams now that have been in this league for 30 years and have traditions and a good fan base and memories. And there's still, new franchises coming in that don't have much of a history, have a couple of year history. But a lot of times it seems like those teams are getting off to a good start. Charlotte has made some noise. Atlanta has made some noise. FC Cincinnati's made some noise in recent years. LAFC, San Diego in the playoffs already. So it's going to be fascinating. I would encourage you tune in. I think the back end of these playoffs are going to be fascinating. If you have some time, find a way to watch some of that, consume some of that, see the high end level of the product that is becoming MLS. Got a long ways to go still. But it's going to be interesting to see with all these big picture moves from accessibility with Apple TV and removing at least one of the paywalls, as well as the global calendar, if that's going to be a thing that helps or a thing that kind of harms MLS in the future. I think it's going to be a positive move overall. I think a lot of smart soccer people have been asking for that for a long time. We want to say thanks for tuning into this episode of Touchline Talk. If you found this episode to be helpful or informative, please share it with somebody else. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.